I look very white. Anyway.
Hey there, Patti McCarthy. Welcome to the Red Couch Talk. How are
Thank
you?
you. Thank you, Angie. It's lovely to be here. I'm well. I'm well. Thank you.
It's amazing that you and I connected maybe a year ago for the first time through our common group, the Relocate the Profit group.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then we found out we're also both in Seattle. And
Yes.
you really encouraged me to come to the conference,
And I hope it was
Seattle
worthwhile.
Europa. And so we have met in person this year, which I really
Yes.
loved. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
It's for all that going online is very useful and convenient, there is nothing that beats face to face.
Yeah, and maybe there's a chance we catch up next year. There are two amazing conferences coming up, one in Switzerland and one in the US, and I'm planning to be at both of them
When's the US one?
in November.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that neither of those are going to fit in with my grand plans for next year.
Yeah, so tell us about that. We can use that as your fun fact.
Well, actually, my fun fact is that everything I know about working with global teams, I learned from playing football when I was an eight-year old, sort of. So,
Okay, okay. How
so
is that?
maybe, so well, because when I was eight, I moved to Belgium with my family,
Uh-huh.
and and I just sort of made friends with the kids in the street. And Brussels is a very international city, so the kids in my street were Belgian, obviously, but also French, Italian, Dutch, Swedish, all kinds of languages were spoken. And we didn't have a sort of common language other than, a few words of French, maybe a few words of English. But we were just united by all wanting for our team to win. So we would have these games of soccer in the street. And it really didn't matter if you couldn't say, kick or whatever in another language. It was just like we wanted our team to win, they wanted their team to win. And honestly, that's really what I think is the most important thing for international teams is that they all feel really driven to achieve the same goal. And
Yeah.
in my case, it literally was a goal. But that what the outcome, if there's a shared enthusiasm for the outcome, then you can get over any differences. So,
Yeah.
and as part of that, I learned to say ice cream flavors in six different languages and all sorts of useful things along the way. But
That is
that's
so
really sort of
beautiful.
set
Yeah.
me up, I suppose, for a lifetime of enjoying meeting people from different countries and cultures. Uh,
Wow. That's a
so
really nice fun fact about you, and I didn't know that. And I think, we share this early experience of moving somewhere else with our parents in that defining age of, I was 7, you were 8.
yeah,
That is actually, taking us on the path of interculturalism and building bridges.
yeah. And,
Mm.
and and the other thing that happened actually at about the same age, which wasn't nearly as fun at the time, was going to an American international school
Mhm.
and coming back from lunch one day and finding that all the tables, all the desks had been put together in one big group, apart from mine. And
So,
this nasty little American girl said, "You can't sit with us because you don't sound like us."
oh
And
wow.
that
That
was
is
when I learned to become a cultural chameleon. And the next day I came in with a perfect American accent.
so you learned that in 24 hours?
Oh, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
People always think I'm mimicking them when I go to other cultures, and I sort of say, "Oh, has it in South Africa?" And oh, shame, and they're like, "What?" Like, "Oh, no, no, sorry, I just can't help it. I'm just trying to blend in." So,
Yeah, yeah, I can relate to that. When I lived in India, I started to wobble my head after a few weeks. Yeah.
of course, it's
Sure,
cool.
man.
It's called
Sure, man.
getting in rapport, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's an automatic thing, when
yeah,
yeah, when you're
yeah.
like that, when you're used to that, that's an automatic thing we do. Oh, that's so amazing. And what is your why? Why you're doing what you're doing?
Oh, because I suppose it is those seminal experiences that you have as a child and you see what it would be like if you weren't able to be open to doing things differently, to playing with kids that you couldn't share a language with, or you couldn't join in if there were people who were resistant to you joining in. And so I've always been interested in in, I guess, helping people reconcile differences. But I didn't actually start working in this space until 2008. And
Mhm.
I'd worked in public relations, in sponsorship for a long time. And then I worked as a relocation consultant for 4 years. And it was really listening to conversations that were happening in the back of my car that I started to feel, oh, the people have got no idea what's coming up. They're just obsessed with finding the perfect house, and they
Mhm.
think that that's going to provide the solution to all their problems. And they've got no idea that there are going to be all sorts of cultural challenges, and that there are also going to be a number of sort of personal difficulties linked with becoming an expatriate and all that involves. And this was something that I knew well from having moved multiple times myself. And I was like, oh, this is something I could do. I can help these people, settle in, enjoy happier, more fulfilling expat assignments, and they can do it more quickly.
Mhm.
So why wouldn't I want to do that?
Awesome. And how did you get from being a relocation consultant, listening in on conversations of expats, to the interculturalist that you are today?
Um, I'm a great believer in what goes around comes around. Okay,
Mhm.
so I have often given my coaching and advice for free to somebody who, if I think they need it. And I had a woman come to me. I belonged to the South African Business Network when we were living in Melbourne, and I met a woman there who said, "Oh, it sounds like I really need to." This is after I had been working as a relo consultant, and I decided I wanted to train as a coach. So, and then I would sort of specialize in helping unhappy expats. That was sort of my thought. And so I met this woman, and I told her what I was doing, and she said, "Oh, I need to come to you because I've been here for 2 years from Joburg," and she said, "It's really bad. I've cried every night and things." So anyway, so we agreed to start working, and then she messaged me about a week before we were due to start, and she said, "I'm sorry, I've actually just resigned from my job, which is with one of the big four consultancies." And she said, "So I can't afford it." So I said, "Look, let's just do it anyway and see where you end up." And so I worked with her, and she went to the managing partner and said, "I've been doing this work with this woman, Patti McCarthy. And honestly, if I'd had her services when I first came here, I wouldn't be leaving now. And you wouldn't have wasted all that money hiring me and moving me over. And you now got to go through the whole process of replacing me." And that was my entree into that firm. And then it sort of went from there. So
So you basically were the first expat coach, because before that even was a thing.
well, I thought I was, and
Mhm.
maybe I was, because in 2008, I was like, oh, yeah, this is something really good. I can combine my life coaching with my cultural knowledge
Yeah.
and help people to sort of make sense of where they are. And I must admit, I thought it was a very original idea. But when we then moved to England, 2017, I found lots of other people doing that. And I was like, oh, what? Sort of, but maybe in 2008 it was original. I don't know. I think people like Richard Lewis have been doing it for quite a while. So, but
Yeah. Although I would always qualify people like him more as trainers.
yeah,
And
that's
then,
true.
we have this interesting mix of we're able to do training, obviously, the classical 1 day intercultural awareness training, home, host, country comparison type of trainings. But we can also coach people one-on-one through difficult challenges or
Yeah,
leading a global team, as you mentioned.
yeah.
I think that
And I
is
think you're
still
right.
quite unique.
Yes, and I think it's really important to have both of those skills because,
Mm,
well, I know that, we've spoken about this before, that, training imparts the knowledge that people need, and they can receive it on a sort of academic level,
exactly.
but they don't always want to make those changes. So
Yeah.
if you get a leader who, for example, is very successful in his or her own country, and despite behaviors of a particular way that you could say, well, if you are very hierarchical and people have to make appointments to come and see you, and et cetera, et cetera. And I say to you, well, that kind of behavior won't go down very well in England, and I would recommend that you would sort of change your style. they're going to be concerned that they are going to lose their success. They're going to, not be seen and not feel as successful anymore if they change their style.
Mhm, mhm.
And I go, no, it's okay. You will be successful in a different way. Just like, you put your swimsuit on to go to the pool and you put your coat on to go out in winter. These are just different persona that you will learn to adopt to work in different workplaces. And in the long term, that's going to be really beneficial for you. But I see often that people have this real resistance to change because they're scared of what that change might bring.
Yeah, and as we know, change is not that easy, and that is why it helps, if we help clients move through a transition, and
Yeah.
not only the transition from one country to another, but also the professional transition, maybe personal life transition. And sometimes people try to do all of these three challenges at once, and
And on their own.
we're there and hold their hands, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
So if you think about a younger version of you, Patty, maybe that 2008 version of you, what would you advise that younger version or, someone Gen Z who might think about, hey, I want to
yeah,
move into this field?
um, I would say have realistic expectations, and I hope I don't sound old and jaded when I say that. But
Uh-huh.
I am disappointed still by the number of people who don't think the work we do is important,
Mm.
and so I have been hoping for the last 15 years that I'm going to be flooded with business. It's okay, but I never turn work away because there's just too many people who think, oh, I don't need that. I've been on holiday to that place, so I don't need it, or whatever their excuse is.
Oh,
That
yeah.
people are optimists and they're like, oh, I'll be fine. Sort of. So I'd say have realistic expectations. It's not going to be a big cash cow ever, and so have something else. Have a second um, job, or be a stand-up comic and just or something else that doesn't make you loads of money, but have something else, because I do think it's really super important what we do, but it might be a long time before, still a long time until enough people get it, what we
Mm.
offer.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with you. On the part, especially about intercultural coaching, intercultural training, spouse career support. Still takes a long time to convince global mobility leaders and managers to add those topics into their global mobility policies.
Yeah, they do. And, for obvious reasons, everyone's trying to do things as cheaply as possible. And they're always trying to sort of save a bit of money.
Mm.
But for me, for a company to spend all that money on relocating someone, and
Yeah.
especially relocating a family,
Mm.
and then not providing cultural training to go with it, that's like buying a really expensive bicycle and then saying, oh, like, I'll save £50 and not bother with a padlock. It's just in terms of, the retention of international employees, making sure that your employee interacts in a positive way with local colleagues and local clients and so on. It's to me, it's a complete no-brainer. And look, obviously I would say that, and you obviously would agree with me on that, but I just find it unbelievable that
Yeah.
that people don't
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah. And even financially, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
I used to calculate a lot of business cases for global mobility when I was working in the field as an in-house professional. And in comparison to the cost of an assignment, the cost of what we do is fairly minimal in
Less than
comparison to
1% usually. Yeah.
tax advice, immigration advice,
Yeah.
and all of the other things they buy because they think it is necessary because it is compliance related. And so it doesn't even make sense financially. If you think about
No.
that
And
example
I
you just gave, right? The person who resigned because she couldn't integrate into the company and she
Yeah.
couldn't perform like she was used to. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, my other sort of big beef in this area is how many companies still offer their employees a lump sum to
Mm.
spend on whatever kind of support they need. And people, let's give people the benefit of the doubt. Let's say they're optimists, and they're like, oh, well, I don't need cross-cultural training, and my partner won't need any help sort of, settling in. And I don't need to have someone teach me how to become an expat.
Yeah.
I'll pick it up as I go along.
Yeah.
They don't. And if organizations can make it mandatory to undergo all sorts of other types of training, why can they not mandate it that people have to have cultural training before going on an expat assignment? Even a short term, a fly in, fly out, or a 3-month assignment. It typically takes a year for people to really adapt to a local culture.
Yes,
So if they're only
absolutely.
going for 3 months, you've really got to be, on the game straight away. Otherwise, you're just wasting that first 3 months, aren't you? So
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I would say, we have probably been through a lot of, those topics. We've also, supported many people, tried to convince a lot of decision makers. I always think, we need to start from the bottom, and the people that I can currently influence are students in the sector of global mobility. So what do you think I should teach them with all the experience that you have? What should be maybe 2 or 3 points that you would stress in global mobility education?
well, I think there's a great book by Patrick Lencioni called Getting Naked, and it's about the role of consultants. And one of the things he says in there that I always remembered is that consultants shouldn't always try to be the nice guy, and they shouldn't just always agree with what the client says they want. And that, as a really good consultant, is someone who says, well, you may think you want that, but actually that won't get you the outcome that you want. And I think we need more people in global mobility, and I'm talking about, for example, relocation companies, to go back to their clients and say, look, it might save you £1,000 to not have cultural training, but these are the real costs of it. And what I'd really like to see future generations of sort of global mobility HR practitioners is being more open to that, and to learning about a field that they have a lot of if you like, tactical experience with, but not necessarily emotional experience with. And
Yeah.
when I go to talk to HR managers about the service I can provide, the first question I usually ask is, have you ever been an expat? And when they say no, I immediately think, well, this is going to be really hard.
Yeah.
Because, if you haven't, it's like that, if you can't see it, you can't be it. If you haven't done it, you just don't get it. You don't
Yeah.
get how difficult it is, and
Yeah.
how people can just spend weeks crying and, so stressed and things like that. So that would sort of really be my number one um, my number one thing that I would want kid sort of young people today to go into thinking, recognizing what a big role it plays in a successful assignment, and persuading, being more persuasive, not just sort of caving into the short-term gain, but going for a longer term gain.
Mm-hmm. I so agree with you. I couldn't have said it better.
This is why we're friends. So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I haven't mentioned to you, but I'm also working on a book for global mobility managers and tax advisors, and I will mention obviously all of these topics. Also,
Good. Yeah.
under the data approach, like
Yeah.
financially looking at
Yeah.
this from a purely financial perspective, not
Yeah.
only from an emotional perspective. But I really think it is extremely important, and it's also one of the feedbacks that I get from my private clients, that sometimes the companies don't see the value, but in the meantime, some of them, they read so much on the internet, they're willing to pay for this privately
Yeah. Yeah.
because they want the kind of support that we can provide. Yeah, because otherwise they know it's going to be very hard. And
Yeah.
we've been through these transitions, we understand how it is. We've been there.
Mm.
I always say, I was an intercultural trainer when I went on my short-term assignment to India. I was already an intercultural trainer, and still it was very hard for me to adapt to a purely relationship-oriented culture when I came from my Germanic background
Yeah.
with agendas and, task orientation, and this is
Yeah.
how you should do
Yes.
things. And I learned so much in those 3 months. It was life-changing for me,
Yeah.
life-changing. So that
Yeah.
I always say, I'm so grateful for the company that they had exposed me to this, even though it was tough and hard. And I never worked as hard in my life as in these 3 months.
Yeah.
And And I wish everybody to go through the experience so they understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the other challenges is that there are, a number of different type of cultures,
Yep.
and organizational culture seems to be, the one thing that everybody is sort of really excited about. And when I say, well, it's not that kind of culture, it's, national culture and identity and so on, and they're like, oh, okay, well, not really then, and it's like, no, but this is also really important. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's difficult. I was training yesterday, actually, a group of um, young and would-be diplomats,
Okay.
and so
Great.
talking about sort of cultural complexities when you've got another layer of protocol,
Yeah.
and on top of that, I mean, that's just really a complete nightmare. So, but that also I had this slide saying, the best laid plans, and it was sort of half a dozen pictures of diplomatic incidents that honestly people would have tried their hardest to avoid happening, but
Uh-huh.
still they backfired. And
Yeah.
that is the case, that these things will happen. And I suppose from my personal sort of marketing point of view, I think, well, so 2008, 2024, 16 years of trying um, to sell what I do and to sell the concept of preparation
Mhm.
rather than reparation. So building strong foundations for people. Now I'm thinking, okay, look, if that's not going to work, then let me reframe myself as someone that you can come to afterwards when you've actually realized, it's actually a bit harder than I thought it was going to be. And
Yeah.
just fess up to it, and that's okay. And they're not going to hear it from me. So like, oh, I told you, it's not that. It's just about recognizing that some
Yeah.
people won't even have been
Yeah.
offered the chance of having cross-cultural training.
You can call us when you're in the Valley of Tears as well.
Exactly,
We
exactly.
still
So
accept you.
yeah, when you're lying at the bottom of the
Yeah.
crevasse in the cultural gap, I'm your man.
We
So
still accept you. Yeah. Yeah. And this is also why I'm so fond of coaching, because it gives us a chance to work with the client through all those incidents, through the
yeah.
cultural issues, and at the same time give them the knowledge that they might not have because sometimes people just wear blindfolds. And
But I think also people just don't realize that they don't know something. And
yeah,
so I'm
you don't know what
working.
you don't know.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so I'm working with someone at the moment who has a team in Australia, and her remit has just expanded to also include teams in India and Singapore and Vietnam. Right. So,
Mhm.
and there have been some issues. And so somebody introduced her to me, and I explained the way that teams in those countries run.
Mhm.
I didn't need to add the two and two together. She was straight away like, oh, so that's why that woman would have been, yeah, and fantastic. So,
Mhm.
and then, literally in a few hours, you can just make a massive difference
Yeah,
to
amazing.
somebody. So,
Wonderful. Wonderful. Now, you shared earlier that you have travel plans coming up. Do you want to talk a bit more
yeah.
about,
So,
what you have planned for the 2025?
well, since COVID, I've pretty much been working online. Yesterday, I went to London, did a day in real life training, which was really lovely, and I really like doing that. But more and more, I'm doing one-to-one coaching with people, and they're all over the world. So I thought, well, I can be all over the world as well. So by twisting both of my husband's arms behind his back, I managed to get him to agree to come. And we're going off on a year of digital nomading, so
Wow.
working from a number of different places, but also doing something called workaway, where you offer 25 hours of labor in
Okay.
exchange for food and accommodation. So
Yeah.
we're going to be working on small holdings in language schools, and so we basically milk goats in the morning and provide cross-cultural training in the afternoon, or he's going to be providing change management consulting. So
Oh,
um,
this is so cool.
yeah,
I'm
so
so jealous.
we're living the dream. So hopefully,
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope you're going to share some pictures and your journey, maybe blog about it.
yeah. Look, I will, but I I know we were going to talk about social media and sort of what I use and things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit off social media at the moment. I don't write a great deal. I find there's an awful lot of sort of fake humility on most social media. So I'm kind of a bit off it. But anyway, we'll
But you
see.
could always do videos.
Yeah. This is me milking a goat. This is
Yeah.
absolutely essential to you learning how to be an effective, CEO across multinational teams. Sort of. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be different, but that's sort of not why I'm doing it. I'm really looking forward to living a different kind of life as well.
Yes.
We sort of jokingly say I always wanted to be a farmer, or
Uh-huh.
farmer's wife, and my
Yeah.
husband always wants to be a park ranger. So this is our chance
We're
to do
trying it out.
yeah. But still keep up the coaching
Yeah.
from anywhere. And I went last year. I spent a month on a ranch in Ecuador,
Hmm.
and I would do my coaching sessions in the morning before
Hmm.
going out. Sort of, I was working in a ranch in a horse riding place, and so before going out in the yard, I'd do my coaching. And what I found was that when the locals went out to milk the cows, they'd put their phones on and watch TikTok videos or whatever. So long as I was online before they were, then I could get a good enough signal to have my coaching calls with people wherever they were in the world. So I just have to find out what time the cows get milked wherever I am. It might be Morocco, Spain, Canada, Albania, wherever I am. I
Well,
just have to find the local milking schedule, and I'll be away. So.
I love that. I love that. Setting your coaching sessions according to the milking schedule.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. Probably the funniest things I've heard on this red couch since we started. Amazing, Patty. It was so great to see you and to talk to you. And I wish you
Thank
all the
you.
best for your journeys and for your
Thank you very
adventure.
much. And who knows, that there might be another book in it, because as you know, I wrote a book a few
Yeah.
years ago called Cultural Chemistry, which, if I had one wish from the fairy this Christmas, it would be that more people would read my book, because I know that a lot of people who have read it have loved it.
Mhm.
But I self-published, and it's very hard to get traction, to get promotion, to get enough people to be aware of it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my
We will
Christmas wish.
link to the book, Cultural
Thank you,
Chemistry,
because
in
that's
the
my
show
purpose.
notes. And also, if there's anything coming up during your journey that you want to share, we will update this, obviously, and keep up with you. It was
Yeah.
fantastic talking to you. All the best.
Thanks, Angie. Thanks for
And
having me.
hopefully meet you on an airport somewhere next year.
Yeah, maybe. So, bye.